everyone! Welcome to Tangerine Planet, a place for kind thoughts, smart ideas, and a little sunshine for the world. Let's make a difference, one step at a time, together.
Okay, so let's dive in. I mean, think about food for a second, right? It's fundamental to our survival, obviously. We need it for energy, for nutrients, just to keep going.
Absolutely.
But take a step back. Picture a really memorable meal you've had.
Yeah.
Was it just the taste?
Probably not. Usually there's more to it.
Exactly. Or was there something else happening?
Yeah.
You know, the conversation, the stories, maybe just that feeling,
Yeah.
that connection with the people there.
That feeling, yeah. That sense of connection is precisely what we're getting into today. Food isn't just fuel, is it?
No.
At its heart, it's profoundly social. I mean, look across pretty much any human culture throughout history, all around the world. Sharing food isn't just, like, practical.
Right.
It's woven deep into ritual, into community, into our basic sense of belonging. And yet...
Yeah, something's changing.
Yeah, yet in many parts of the modern sort of industrialized world, this really fundamental human thing, the shared table, it's quietly fading for a lot of people.
And that's our focus for this deep dive. We've pulled together a whole stack of sources. We're talking global reports, academic studies, cultural analysis, historical accounts, a real mix. A real mix, yeah. And they're all pointing towards something, well, pretty profound, actually. They're showing this measurable, sometimes surprising impact that just gathering around a table, sharing a meal, has on our overall well-being.
It's a powerful link. And the sources really emphasize the connection to mental health and how it might help combat this growing problem of loneliness we hear so much about.
So our journey through these sources today, we're going to trace how something so human, so beneficial, started to disappear from daily life for many.
Yeah, and we'll dig into the science, too, the fascinating stuff happening inside us, biologically when we eat together.
And also understand the sort of cultural richness we might be losing.
Right.
Our mission here is really to unpack what these sources are revealing.
Yeah.
What are we gaining when we eat together? And maybe what are we losing without even realizing it when we eat alone?
It seems so simple, doesn't it? Eating a meal.
Totally mundane.
But these sources strongly suggest that the shared table, that simple act, might actually be a key answer to some really big modern challenges, like social isolation, declining mental well-being.
So it's time to explore that deeper story.
Yeah.
The one behind just, breaking bread together.
Okay, so to really grasp the significance here, the sources suggest we should first look at the global picture, because how shared meals work, or maybe don't work, in different parts of the world, well, it shows a really stark contrast.
Absolutely. You look at so many cultures, right? Think Mediterranean countries, communities in Latin America, Southeast Asia.
Places where it's central.
Exactly. Sharing food isn't just an afterthought or something you rush through. It's deeply embedded in the rhythm of daily life. It's practically a ritual.
It is. You see it in the intentionality, don't you? Meals are often made for the group. Plates get passed around. There's that unspoken understanding. You wait for everyone.
Yeah, you wait to start. You linger until everyone's done. It feels almost sacred sometimes. Part of community connection.
And what's really striking, as the sources point out, is comparing that to other places. In some, industrialized societies, there's this skepticism almost, sometimes even a dismissal of prioritizing eating together.
Right, like the idea of taking a full hour for lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just to quickly refuel, but to actually share it, talk, connect.
It can seem unproductive, maybe, inefficient, even a bit indulgent in our fast-paced world.
Totally. Those basic shared meal rituals, the ones that are foundational elsewhere, they often get pushed aside, just brushed off in the rush.
And the sources really make you pause on this. They ask this critical question. How did something so fundamentally human, something so clearly linked to our well-being, become so easily dismissed, so deprioritized in certain cultures?
It's strange, isn't it? Because it feels like such a core behavior, something honed over thousands of years of human evolution and social life that we've somehow just sidelined.
And this isn't just like a cultural vibe check. The data the sources present is really compelling. It puts hard numbers on this.
Yeah, the 2025 World Happiness Report, which is a major global study, it ranks meal sharing as one of the absolute strongest predictors of individual well-being.
Wow, one of the strongest.
Yeah, we're not talking a minor thing here. The report puts its significance right up there with factors like income level, and whether or not you have a job.
Okay, hold on. Sharing meals is as important for happiness as income or employment.
According to this report's findings, yes, its predictive power is comparable. Think about how much we focus on economics driving happiness.
Definitely.
Yet this simple act, sharing a meal, is right there alongside it.
That comparison really is eye-opening. It shifts the shared table from just being, a lifestyle preference to something as fundamental as having a job or a decent income in terms of how content people feel.
Exactly. And yet, despite this clear link to well-being, the trend, as we said, is going the wrong way in some places. Shared meals are declining.
And the sources specifically point to data from the United States as being, well, particularly concerning.
Yes, the U.S. figures are pretty stark. According to the analysis cited, 1 in 4 Americans now eats every single meal alone.
Every meal, that's a lot.
It is. This isn't just occasionally grabbing lunch by yourself. It's the default. All meals, every day, for a quarter of the population.
Wow.
And what's maybe even more alarming is the trend line. That figure represents a 53% increase in solitary eating since just 2003.
53%. In, just over 2 decades?
Yep. The number of Americans eating every meal alone has surged dramatically in a relatively short period.
That's an incredibly rapid societal shift, moving away from the shared table. And the global rankings, they kind of underline this, don't they, based on the report data you mentioned?
They do. Out of 142 countries surveyed on shared meals, the U.S. ranks 69th. The U.K. is even lower at 81st.
So squarely in the bottom half globally for this fundamental social practice.
Right. Now, compare that to the countries topping the list. Places like Senegal, Gambia, Malaysia, Paraguay. Okay. In those places, residents share 11 or more meals per week, on average.
11 or more. So that's like almost every meal is with other people.
Pretty much. It paints a picture of daily life with a totally different rhythm, doesn't it? Where social interaction is just naturally built into the eating schedule multiple times a day.
Yeah, it really does. And the World Happiness Report, it makes the connection explicit, you said.
It does. Countries with these high rates of meal sharing also consistently report stronger social support networks among their people.
Makes sense.
And significantly lower levels of loneliness. This isn't presented as just a correlation, like a coincidence.
No, it's positioned as more direct.
Exactly. The sources frame the decline of communal meals in industrialized societies not just as a cultural shift, but as a genuine public health issue.
A public health concern. Because moving away from eating together has these tangible negative effects on social well-being on a large scale.
Precisely. Which brings us to a really crucial question the sources dig into. How did we get here? Especially in places like the U.S., where, the shared meal wasn't always pushed aside like this.
Right. It had its moment.
It did. And the material gives us a look back, tracing the history of the family meal, particularly in America.
Okay, let's get into that history then. The sources describe how the idea of the family meal, it really solidified, didn't it? Became a kind of cultural anchor in the U.S. during the 19th century.
Yeah, that period saw the rise of the middle class, and with that came this domestic ideal, a vision of a structured, orderly home life.
Right.
And having fixed, structured meal times where the whole family gathered was a key part of that ideal. It wasn't just about nourishment.
No, it's symbolic.
It symbolized order, family unity, middle-class respectability.
And that image, that ideal, it got cemented, didn't it, in the national consciousness through the early, maybe mid-20th century.
Very much so. The sources point to the huge influence of advertising in popular culture, especially early television shows.
The classic sitcom family dinner scene.
Exactly. Those platforms constantly showed the idealized nuclear family, sitting together around the dinner table. It reinforced that ritual as the picture of American domestic harmony, stability. It became something to aspire to.
The sources also bring in Megan Elias's perspective here. She directs food studies at Boston University. She gives this broader historical view.
Right, reminding us that humans eating in groups isn't new.
Not at all. We've done it for as long as we've been, human. She points out it's just deeply efficient resource-wise and energy-wise.
Yeah, instead of every single person or tiny unit finding and cooking food separately.
It just makes sense to pool resources, share the labor.
Exactly. Her point is, because humans have always lived and worked in groups, it's fundamental to us as social creatures. Eating in groups was just a natural extension of that.
It's ancient behavior.
Right. But it took on that specific cultural weight in the U.S. during that 19th and early 20th century period we were talking about. It became this structured ritual that helped kind of solidify family bonds during a time of big social and economic changes.
But then, things started to change. The sources explain how major shifts in the 20th century began chipping away at those structured family meals.
Yeah, think about urbanization drawing people into cities. New technologies, new systems, they dramatically altered daily life.
Like factory work.
Exactly. Rigid shift schedules. Daily life became ruled by the clock in a new way. That made it logistically really hard, sometimes impossible, for a whole family to actually be home at the same time for a meal.
So the shared family clock got replaced by the external factory clock. Fragmented schedules.
Precisely. And the sources mention other mid-century things too. Suburban sprawl, for instance.
Longer
commutes, families more spread out. And then the rise of convenience foods, maybe the ultimate example being the TV dinner.
Yes, the TV dinner. Eating alone or rushed in front of a screen.
Instead of conversation around a table, yeah. These were technological shifts, urban design changes. They sort of inadvertently worked against those communal eating habits.
And over time, the sources argued the convenience factor just started winning out, didn't it?
It seems so. Convenience took precedence over the ritual, the togetherness of the shared meal. Eating became less about social connection and more about, well, speed, fitting it into individual schedules.
Often with screens as companions instead of people.
Right. It was gradual, maybe almost imperceptible for a while, but ultimately a really significant cultural shift.
And this trend, the sources argue, it's only sped up recently.
Definitely. The digital revolution,
Yeah.
constant connectivity, it's further fragmented our time, our attention.
And then COVID, the pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic was complex.
Right.
While it initially forced some families together more,
Mm.
ultimately it probably normalized even more solitary habits for many. Meals became these quick necessities, squeezed between Zoom calls or desk work, bleeding into home life, the constant pull of social media.
Yeah, the quick bite between Zooms, I recognize that.
So you can trace this clear path, right, from a natural, efficient group behavior, elevated to an idealized cultural ritual,
Right.
then gradually eroded by the demands and, let's face it, the conveniences of modern life.
But the sources don't just stop at history and trends. They really dig into the science. Why does this shift actually matter so much for our well-being?
And this is where it gets really fascinating, I think.
Absolutely. The sources talk about research published in Adaptive Human Behavior and Physiology. It looks at what's actually happening inside our brains when we share meals socially.
Right. And it shows that social meals actively stimulate the brain's endorphin system.
Endorphins. We usually think of those with exercise, right? Runner's high. Or pain relief.
We do. But this research clearly links them to social bonding. The sources explain these endorphin pathways are closely tied to other really powerful neurochemicals, things like oxytocin.
The bonding hormone.
Exactly. And dopamine, too, linked to pleasure and reward. These chemicals are strongly associated with bonding, trust, feeling good, feeling connected.
So it's not just a vague, nice feeling when you eat with others. There's actual biology, brain chemistry underpinning it.
Precisely. The very act of sharing that meal triggers these neurochemical responses that help us connect, that strengthen social bonds.
This source makes a really striking point here. It says, sharing a table is as vital for human connection as conversation itself.
Yeah, that's powerful, isn't it? It's not just background noise while you talk. The shared physical presence, the sensory experience of eating together, those are active ingredients in building relationships.
And this science, this neurochemistry, it ties directly into the mental health outcomes the sources discuss.
It does. One set of findings, published in Frontiers in Public Health, looked specifically at older adults.
Okay.
And it found that when older people have communal eating experiences compared to eating alone, it can significantly help reduce feelings of loneliness, sadness, general emotional distress.
That makes intuitive sense. If you combat the isolation, which eating together does,
Right.
it would naturally ease those negative feelings. The source says this leads to measurable improvements in mental well-being for older adults. It's a powerful but actually quite simple intervention when you think about it.
It is. But the benefits aren't just for older people. The sources also highlight a study in clinical nutrition that focused on adolescents, teenagers.
Okay, what did that find?
It found that young people who regularly shared meals with family, with friends, reported significantly fewer symptoms linked to stress, anxiety, and depression.
Fewer symptoms compared to those who ate alone often.
Exactly. compared to adolescents who frequently ate alone.
That's a really critical finding, too. It shows this isn't just about one generation's challenges. The protective effect of shared meals seems to work across the lifespan.
It does, impacting older adults who might face isolation and young people navigating all the pressures of adolescence.
So the researchers behind these studies, what's their main conclusion, according to the sources?
They seem to be converging on this idea. These shared meal experiences provide a really crucial kind of emotional support. They create a necessary comfort zone, almost like a buffer against mental health struggles.
A buffer. I like that.
Yeah. It reinforces the idea that the shared table isn't just a nice to have. It might be one of the most accessible, maybe most affordable tools we have against the growing problem of loneliness in modern society.
And when you put that together with the data, that huge jump in solitary eating, the ranking alongside income for well-being, the scientific backing, makes the case even stronger, doesn't it?
It really does.
Maybe bringing back communal meals isn't about nostalgia for some imagined past. Maybe it's actually a necessity for public health, for individual resilience, especially facing widespread isolation.
So if we connect all these threads, the history, the data, the science, the sources, then explore more deeply, what exactly are we risking losing when eating together declines? It seems like it's much more than just missing out on conversation.
Right. Yeah. Although that's a big part of it. Going back to Megan Elias's insights, she emphasizes that while losing conversation is obvious when you eat alone, there's something deeper going on. She offers this really interesting perspective. She suggests that sharing a sensory experience like a meal, the sights, the smells, the textures, the tastes, even the sounds of eating together, that can actually make other people seem more real to us.
More real. How so?
It's like a form of embodied presence, a deep, almost visceral way of acknowledging and connecting with someone else's physical being that goes beyond just words.
That idea of shared sensory experience solidifying others' reality, that's really insightful. It means the shared table isn't just a stage for talking. The physical act of eating together is itself a form of communication, a kind of nonverbal bonding.
Exactly. And Elias uses this great phrase. She calls these everyday interactions, these moments of shared experience around food, the glue of daily life.
The glue of daily life. That's powerful. It suggests these seemingly small, routine moments are actually what holds the social fabric together on a micro level.
And without them, she argues, people risk becoming, well, emotionally and socially untethered, kind of drifting away from meaningful connections in their communities, in their relationships.
That lines up perfectly with those social connectiveness measures we talked about from the research.
Right.
The sources remind us of those clear links. More shared meals correlates directly with higher levels of perceived social support, feeling like you have people to rely on.
Okay.
Also higher levels of positive reciprocity, that healthy give and take in relationships.
And lower loneliness.
And, crucially, lower levels of loneliness. These aren't just theories, they're observed outcomes in populations.
The sources introduce a specific term here, an anthropological term, that really nails this idea. Commensality.
Commensality, right? It literally means eating together.
But it refers specifically to doing it in order to strengthen social bonds, right? To build community, create a shared identity. It's not just eating in the same room.
No, it's the active shared experience for connection.
And Fabio Persocoli, he's a professor of food studies at NYU, cited in the sources. He elaborates on this.
What does he add?
He really stresses that food, and especially the sharing of food, are incredibly important elements in building identity.
Okay.
Not just our individual identity, our tastes, our food memories, that kind of thing, but crucially, community identity.
So the group identity.
Yes. How we eat together, the foods we share, the rituals around the meal. These things help define who we are as a group, as a family, a culture, whatever the unit is.
So when that practice, that commensality, starts to erode,
then the sources argue that the sense of belonging, that collective identity forged at the table, it starts to weaken too.
which has emotional consequences.
Big time. Persocoli makes that critical point. The lack of this sense of belonging brings significant emotional distress. Without feeling part of something larger, connected through these really fundamental shared acts, people can feel deeply isolated.
So the physical act of eating together, it's not just about fuel or logistics.
No. According to the sources, it's a crucial, maybe even primal way we define ourselves, our relationships, our place in the community. It's foundational to being social beings.
To make this really concrete, the sources then point to specific cultural examples where commensality is still really vibrant. places where it serves as this kind of natural antidote to loneliness.
Yeah, these examples are great for seeing it in action. They mention Turkey's rakasofrasia, described not just as dinner, but as this deliberate ritual. Small plates, shared among friends.
Lots of conversation.
Exactly. Shared laughter, flowing conversation, lingering for hours. The whole evening is specifically dedicated to connection, with the food as the focal point, the facilitator.
Or think about the tradition of the long, leisurely Sunday lunch in Italy. The sources mention that too.
Right. It takes up, like, half the day sometimes.
Yeah. Multiple courses, shared among extended family, hours spent just sitting at the table talking long after the eating's technically finished. It's a cornerstone of the week, explicitly prioritized for family bonding.
In Greece, the meze, platters, and tavernas.
Mm-hmm.
The sources point out that the very design of those shared plates encourages people to break bread together, dip into the same dishes, share communally. It's built for interaction.
Forging kinship right there at the table through the food.
Exactly. These examples, they frame hospitality, sharing food with others, almost as a healing practice.
A healing practice. I like that.
Yeah. They turn the table itself into this natural, organic setting for nurturing relationships, fighting isolation, fostering that vital sense of belonging that the science shows is so important for well-being.
It really highlights what gets lost when meals become solitary or rushed or just transactional.
It's not just the nutrients we miss. It's these opportunities for deep human connection.
Okay, so given everything we've discussed, the rising isolation, the clear benefits, what can actually be done, how can we restore communal eating?
Well, the good news is the sources don't just diagnose the problem. They also explore different initiatives, different approaches being discussed, being tried out around the world.
So solutions are being pursued.
Yeah, from various angles. It shows people are actively trying to figure this out. For instance, urban planners.
Okay, what are they thinking?
Some are starting to integrate ideas like common kitchens into new housing developments.
Common kitchens, so shared cooking and eating spaces.
Exactly. Creating intentional spaces where residents can easily gather, cook together, share meals, building community right into the physical design of where people live.
Interesting. What about workplaces?
Well, psychologists and workplace well-being experts are suggesting reforms around the workday, especially lunch breaks.
Like longer breaks? Or
Could be encouraging shared lunch times, maybe providing actual inviting communal eating spaces away from desks, or even organizing optional group meals to help colleagues connect socially during the day.
getting people away from eating sadly at their desks?
Pretty much, yeah. And it's even reaching government levels, apparently. The sources mention various ministries, public bodies, funding meal-based programs,
A kind of program.
often designed specifically to connect different groups who might be isolated. Like programs bringing seniors and young people together to share meals, bridging generational divides.
That sounds really positive. And the impact of deliberately bringing back communal dining, it's especially clear in care settings, right? Like nursing homes.
Absolutely. The sources detail findings from places that have replaced solitary tray meals with communal dining for residents.
And what did those studies show?
Significant improvements in mental health outcomes, better appetite, even improved cognition among older adults who eat together regularly.
Wow, improved cognition too.
Yeah. And maybe most crucially in that context, it directly tackles the loneliness that can be so pervasive in those settings. It actively fosters a sense of belonging among residents.
That's a really powerful, tangible example of this research in action. Intentional communal eating having these dramatic positive effects.
Totally. But it's not just about top-down solutions or institutions. The sources also emphasize the importance of grassroots efforts.
Like people just doing it themselves.
Exactly. Communities taking it upon themselves to restore the table from the bottom up.
So things like supper clubs.
Yeah, supper clubs, informal groups getting together regularly just to share a meal and talk, or online platforms and community programs that connect strangers over home-cooked meals.
Creating those opportunities for people who might otherwise eat alone a lot.
Right. Intentionally creating those shared table moments.
So these modern gatherings, the sources conclude, they can look really different, can't they?
Totally different styles. It could be a planned family dinner, a casual neighborhood potluck, a structured work lunch club.
But the core message, despite all the variations,
Is singular and clear, the sources say. The table, in all its forms, remains one of the simplest, most fundamental, and honestly, most powerful ways we have to bring people together.
it feels like this basic human technology for connection, one we've kind of forgotten or maybe just deprioritized sometimes. in our rush for other things.
Yeah, maybe less fulfilling things like other kinds of tech or just pure convenience.
And the sources really end with this powerful idea, pulling it all together. They argue quite compellingly that reviving communal dining isn't just about, feeling nostalgic for the past.
It's not just sentimentality.
No. Given the real challenges we face, rising isolation, mental well-being concerns, the erosion of social ties bringing people back to the table isn't just nice, it's actually a necessity.
A necessity for the health of individuals and for the health of our communities now and in the future.
Exactly.
Okay, wow. So let's just take a breath and recap the journey we've taken through these sources in this deep dive.
Yeah, let's pull the threads together.
We started by looking at the global picture, the history, seeing how sharing food is so deeply ingrained in many cultures, but how it's shifted dramatically in places like the U.S., with solitary eating really on the rise.
Then we dove into the science, the why it matters, how shared meals actually trigger brain systems for bonding and pleasure endorphins, oxytocin, dopamine.
Right.
And we saw the direct research showing real mental health benefits across different ages. Communal eating helping reduce loneliness, sadness, anxiety, depression in both older adults and teenagers.
And we explored what's really lost when the table empties. Going beyond just conversation to Megan Elias's idea of making others feel more real through that shared sensory experience.
And that concept of commensality, how eating together builds identity, builds community, as Fabio Parasecoli highlighted, with those great cultural examples showing it as a kind of healing practice against isolation.
Then finally, we looked at the hopeful side, the diverse creative efforts happening now to bring people back together around food.
Yeah, from city planning and workplace changes to government programs and those vital grassroots initiatives like supper clubs, it shows there are many ways to try and revive this connection.
This deep dive really hammered home for me how something so seemingly simple, so routine sharing a meal, is tangled up with these huge, vital parts of our lives, our well-being, our sense of identity, the actual health of our communities.
It's really not just about the food itself, is it? It's fundamentally an act of connection, woven into the fabric of being human.
Yeah. And given how universal this practice is, historically and culturally, and how clearly the sources show its benefits, especially against loneliness and for mental health, it really makes you reflect on your own life, doesn't it? Your own eating habits.
It really does.
Yeah, me too. So maybe here's a thought for you, the listener, to take away from this deep dive. Considering everything we've unpacked, the history, the science, the cultural power of eating together, what's maybe one small intentional step you could take this week? Something to consciously reclaim or maybe just reinforce the power of the shared table in your own life.
Could be anything, really.
Could be inviting a friend for a coffee, but maybe making it deliberately screen-free, planning a proper meal with family you haven't connected with properly in a while, suggesting a walk-and-talk lunch with a colleague instead of eating at your desk again.
Or even looking for a local community meal, a supper club maybe.
Exactly. Just finding one way to recognize that mealtime, not just as fuel, but as a potentially powerful act of connection, an act of well-being, and maybe, just maybe, an act of building the kind of community we all really need.
Thanks for being with us today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and tap the bell to keep the good vibes going. Let's join into healing our little world one step at a time, together. And all this is Tangerine Planet. Until next time.